So just keep in mind that we're live, and if there's anything in particular you don't want to be said to the universe.
Okay.
Oh, bye.
Perfect.
All right, I'm sending the link right now.
Where's Anna Cesarenko?
I know, Anna. Maybe I'll
She's
tweet her.
supposed to be
Yeah,
here.
because we already have two less speakers down.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good thing Jamira is a woman. It's
Well,
going to be a
hi.
male-dominated Google Hangout.
Yeah, I play dual roles, a woman and a host, you know.
Do you want to post your your Twitter account so we can follow? There will be someone following the conversation on Twitter, hopefully. If you want to.
Yeah, in the beginning, when we ask each of you to introduce yourself, I'm going to ask you to say your Twitter name so people can keep up with the conversation, as well as to follow the hashtag.
Okay. Maybe if you can write it here.
Oh, you're on the sidebar? Yes.
Yeah.
I've sent mine.
Okay,
Mine's is
Rolando.
up.
I don't have a very Twitter account, but
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Do we want to go live? Or do we want to start, I should say?
We're already live. Let's wait
Okay.
for the other.
already live. Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait a few more minutes for Anna.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
no
Wait a
worries.
second.
You're in Philadelphia now, Jamira, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll be moving soon. Maybe I shouldn't say that on TV. I'm on camera yet. It is not public. So, yes, I'm in Philadelphia as of now. Makes me want to play the Jeopardy music. Da, 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 da. Dun, da, 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 da.
Rolando, did you put a traditional costume?
No, this is my casual shirt. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
That's fine.
Yeah, look at how Andrea dresses. He looks so diplomatic, you know. So formal.
You wanted to say old, I know.
Very diplomatic.
All right, I sent you the embed code, Rolando and Andrea.
Makes me feel like I should go change into something more formal.
Anyone currently tuning in to the Google Hangout, we're just waiting a few more minutes for another panelist to join the conversation before we start.
We are still waiting for the link for the webmaster, right?
No, she sent it.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah, you have it.
Cool.
Oh, the thumbnail is Andrea's face. Cool.
What? Oh yeah.
Has anyone heard from Anna?
No, she's half online on Skype, but she hasn't responded to my message. I sent her a message on Facebook as well. She hasn't responded. So, but
She knew that she
a
had to do it, right?
yeah, we had a Skype meeting yesterday.
Oh,
So
come
I don't
on.
know why she.
Maybe you guys scared her away.
I didn't do anything.
Anna, join. I think
Perhaps we should start a bit.
we should, and if she joins, then we'll just include her in the
Yeah,
conversation.
but we are not online on the website. Wait.
Oh, we're not? Okay.
What is the painting that you have on your head, Rolando? Did you make it?
You're on mute, Rolando.
Yeah, we're
You just gave a
all-
whole explanation.
Yeah, it's a Norwegian painting actually, and it shows the northern lights of the northern part of Norway. So very symbolic where I am now.
wow.
Are you going to announce that you're from the country that has
Of course
7,733,000
you will.
islands? But he's only went to 2.
Yeah. Andrea doesn't really like that line, but I will pursue
No,
it.
it's not that I don't like it. It's that
It's what inclusion is all about, right? We are 7,000 islands, but we're united. So that's what Globi is.
Yes.
I understand. I understand. The webmaster told me to wait just a few minutes.
Yeah. No, no worries. I already clicked the YouTube and we're live, definitely.
However, Rolando, should we? I don't think we should share that link now, so we can share directly Globi's page as soon as it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to access the link on the YouTube channel. Do you mind sharing that?
I just did Kareem and it works.
Uh-huh.
So we're live on YouTube now.
Okay, we're almost ready with the website.
We're like famous now that we're live on YouTube.
Fingers crossed.
So how many billion viewers do we have already?
Everyone in the world is watching us right now, which is totally creepy.
Turn off your cameras.
What identity should I bring? Is it Norwegian, Filipino, or Czech? Sorry, Filipino, I just remember.
I don't know if
vote,
there's as many
I would
islands.
vote for Norwegian.
Or American. We really want.
Okay, 1 minute we should be ready.
Sure, no worries.
Good job, Rolando. A t-shirt? Seriously?
Okay, we're supposed to be eradicating bullying in the context of Globi, but it's sadly hitting this. So.
It's all love. It's all love. I feel it.
Yay, I think we're live now.
On the website?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
loading.
Okay, are we ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
I think we are.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. It's not an American thing, I promise. My name is Jamira Burley, and I'm the co-founder of GenYnot. GenYnot is an online platform that curates content for young people because we believe that youth are the experts of their own experience, and we want to give them a platform to express their views and concerns in a way that generates solution-based dialogue. And we're super excited to co-host this Google Hangout with Globi and its founders and young people around the world to talk about the importance of inclusion and tolerance for everyone. And so in celebration of International Day of Tolerance, we're excited to help launch Globi with its founders. And so we're super excited to get started on this Google Hangout because I think we kept you waiting a little long. But all in all, to follow the conversation, look out for the hashtag pound or hashtag inclusion to me. So that's the number 2, so inclusion to ME. And you can follow along with the conversation and also join us with your thoughts and concerns, as well as go on the website at www.globi, say the website for me, Andrea.
Observatory.
Globi Observatory.
.org, and it's /launch. So you can also view the Google Hangout from there, which we want to take you to that website because it's a way for you to get connected with the organization as well as learn ways for you to get engaged. So with that being said, we're actually going to jump right into the conversation, and I'm going to ask all of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and tell us where in the world that you currently are now, but introduce yourself with the emphasis of inclusion in the work that you do. And we'll start with you, Rolando, from the Philippines.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Google Hangout session. My name is Rolando, not Ronaldo, but Rolando. I'm from the Philippines, based in Oslo, Norway, as I'm pursuing my master's degree in special and inclusive education. My field in the aspect of inclusion is working with children with disabilities in inclusive education. It's good to be here.
Andrea?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Pregel. I'm from Italy, but I'm currently living in London, UK, where I'm completing my Erasmus Mundus Masters in Special and Inclusive Education. I just came back from Malaysia, where I conducted research for my final dissertation. My main research interest is disability and in relation also to deafness and deaf community and sign language. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting this Hangout.
Karim?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hangout. I'm Karim Al Said from Egypt. I'm a fourth-year medical student right now. So my current specialty is working in SHRH, which is sexual health and reproductive health related to inclusion in terms of including people with people living with HIV and so on, related to also like in the Middle East where people find this very difficult. So this is where most of my work is related actually to SHRH. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this conversation. And I should mention and point out, if it hasn't already been noted, that I think we hit a few points around the world where our panelists are from. And so good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are watching this. And we're happy that you're able to join the conversation. And hopefully we'll also have Anna, who's from Moldova, join the conversation a little bit later. So please look out for that. So jumping in with our first question for Andrea, if you can briefly tell us, what does tolerance mean and how you connected at Globi?
Rolando and I have been working on this project for a few months now, and we decided to launch it in November. We were looking for the right date, and then we found out that today was the International Day of Tolerance. So this seemed meaningful to us. Tolerance might look like, in a way, a passive word, like just acceptance, like tolerate someone or something, just even though if you don't like it. However, tolerance has a deeper meaning. It means to recognize human rights and the equality of all other human beings, and to respect and appreciate the rich variety of cultures and diversity. From our point of view, tolerance is the first step on the path of inclusion. Our main project is based on inclusion in its varieties of forms, as we will explain later. So this was the link that we found between tolerance and inclusion. And tolerance, it's a great value, and we believe it's a starting point to achieve a broader goal and a broader achievement, which is inclusion.
Because it seems like every time you turn on the news or you pick up a newspaper, you see so many conflicts happening because of differences that people have. And I think when you think about tolerance, you think about not just race, culture, gender, or ability or non-ability. There's a host of differences that people have. So I'm curious if the other two panelists can briefly tell us what does inclusion mean for you? Because it means different things for everyone, but I'm curious what it means specifically for you in the context as we launch Globi today.
Well, Jameer, I'd say that inclusion it's basically about diversity. And when we talk about diversity, you know, Andrea and I discuss about this, that it can be a very empowering and inspiring word, but it can also be a source of discrimination and division. But it has to be critically considered that we have to be enriched by the so-called diversity. And that's one thing that people have to look into. And that's what inclusion for me, it's all about being enriched with the differences and diversity of people coming from different backgrounds, whatever ethnicity, whatever language, whatever ability, or whatever gender people may have. People have the capacity to respect and be enriched by this diversity.
So I have a follow-up question for you, Rolando, because I've known you for the last 2 years, even though we're in different sides of the world, and because we're both members of Jeffy's Global Education First Youth Advocacy Group, and most of your focus is with young people with disabilities. So can you tell us what does that mean when you talk about inclusion? How do you work to include young people with disabilities in the conversation globally?
Exactly. As mentioned during the introduction, my focus is on the inclusion of children with disabilities in general education systems. It's all about making them, you know, be able to participate in the general education system, because in the country where I come from, Philippines, there has been a massive stereotype that if you have a disability, you only go to special education class. That means you're not supposed to be included in a general education classroom because you have a different personality, you have different needs, and that your needs have to be focused on by a special education teacher. But a lot of advocates, including me, feel that this has been a problem, and for a long period of time since the 1970s in the Philippines, children with disabilities continue to be isolated in the general education system. But I'd like to say, though, that special education is not about discriminating. You know, special education plays a very critical role in including children with disabilities in general education system. It becomes a transition for children to be included in the general education system. But the challenge with the Philippines now is that children with disabilities have been in the special education centers for 10 years, for 5 years, for 8 years, and for a long, long time, they have not been included in the general education system, and it seems to be a challenge. So that's what we're working on, and that's how we see inclusion. It's all about including children with disabilities in general education system so that they have the opportunity to interact with other children, they have the opportunity to see the real world, they have the opportunity to feel belongingness. Of course, this requires a lot of support, a lot of training, a lot of advocacy and awareness raising activities. So that's how I perceive inclusivity, Jamira.
Perfect, thank you. And again, just a reminder to all the viewers, if you want to join the conversation or if you have a remark in regards to anything that the panelists say, please use the hashtag #inclusion2me. And again, this is the International Day of Tolerance, and we want to continue to celebrate it by bringing this conversation to you. So Karim, if you could briefly tell us, what does that mean? What does tolerance mean in the work that you do, specifically in the medical field?
I would like to emphasize on what Andrea has said about tolerance is recognizing the human rights, the basic human rights. Everybody has their basic human rights. In the medical field, really, what we've been working on recently is, or at least I've been working on recently, is the inclusion of people with who have people living with HIV, mental, and other people with mental illnesses such as epilepsy and schizophrenia and depression. in the Middle East, or where I come from, basically in my country, people who have mental diseases are usually excluded from the workplaces, excluded from colleges, excluded from schools, even though they can lead a very normal, healthy life if they follow their medications and so on. However, they're completely excluded. So what we do basically is raise awareness to the general public about these different types of mental illnesses, how they can be treated, and how people can deal with such people with mental illnesses. And same goes with people living with HIV and other sexual rights related problems. It's a very conservative country. It's a very conservative region, the Middle East. So we raise awareness about people, them not as the bad things about them or whatever that people say around this region. However, including them into workplace, including them into schools, even their families, including them in their own families is very important. So yeah, basically this is much of a field.
Thank you for sharing. And I should point out we're finally joined by Anna from Moldova.
Yeah.
Hi, Anna. You're on mute.
Anna, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So I should mention we just got started on the conversation, so you haven't missed much. But we are talking about, one, what does inclusion mean to you? So if you could just briefly introduce yourself to everyone watching and tell us the work that you're doing and where you are in the world currently.
Hello to everyone. I'm Anna Susarenko and I'm from Moldova. Now I'm a member of the Youth Advocacy Group on the UN Global Education First Initiative. But in Moldova, I'm coordinating a network of young people doing peer-to-peer education on health education, especially on sexual reproductive health. And recently, I started to lead on the UNICEF youth group in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So I'm doing a lot on education, trying to make education also inclusive. And to speak about inclusiveness, I started to work with the inclusive education or to advocate for inclusive education last year when I started to work with the UNICEF, and especially with the inclusive education for children.
Great, thank you for joining the conversation again. And for those who are watching, can we have each of you just briefly tell us what's your Twitter name so people can tag you? Rolando, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my Twitter name is quite long, but it's at RJRC _ Villamero. Villamero is spelled as VILLAMERO. That's really long, sorry.
Karim? Andrea?
Mine is A_PREAEL.
Anna?
Mine is just my name, Susarenko.
Karim?
So mine is fairly simple. It's _101KK.
And you can follow me at GenYnot Live or Jamira Burley at Jamira Burley. So again, back to the conversation on inclusion. Before we get in talking about what Globi is and how people can get involved, what's the mission behind it, I'm curious, Anna, if you could mute yourself when you're not talking, because I think I hear static. So before we get into talking about what is the mission of Globi, how people can get involved, I'm curious if we can briefly talk about from each of you, what do you think are the barriers for us to have inclusivity across a number of different genres? So everything from medicine to education to accessibility to resources. What do you think are the barriers, and how do we surpass those barriers to make sure that the world is inclusive for every person? And anyone can start.
I'd like to say, yes, go ahead, Kareem.
Rolando, please.
Okay, I'd like to say that the challenge has always been awareness. I mean, ignorance about exclusion, ignorance about discriminating people is a product of lack of awareness. And that's where education comes in. That's why we are so keen at really highlighting how important education is to advocate for inclusion, and that education is not just all about structured learning environment, it's all about outside the classroom. That's why we do advocacy activities. We go to the radio, we go to the different aspects of media, we go to social media to educate people about the issue of inclusion. And that's one first step to addressing the issue of inclusion. It's raising the awareness of the people about the issue, and then we go much higher in terms of how we address it.
Thank you.
So basically, add to what Rolando said, it's almost everything I wanted to say. It's the lack of awareness, especially in poor communities. The cultural background where people have this culture of judging others, people have a culture of not accepting others who are different. So definitely awareness can help a lot in this field, in this area, to include people who are different from you, to include people from different cultural backgrounds, to include people from different countries, and so on. So yes, education is the first step to inclusion, and of course awareness through advocacy and radios and TV shows and Google Hangouts and so on, just like what we're doing right now, is the first step to achieving inclusion worldwide.
Rolando before talked about diversity, and today we celebrate the International Day of Tolerance, but tolerance cannot just be tolerated. Diversity cannot just be tolerated. Diversity should be embraced. So I think one of the main obstacles is the general aptitude that we can find in our societies, and an aptitude towards exclusion, an aptitude towards diversity conceived as an obstacle. The point is that we are all different, and for this very reason, we're all equal. We're all the same. Our diversity is what makes us all the same. And this is a shift, a mind shift that I think we should promote, and we should support with our activity, with our advocacy, and in all our societies.
And Jameer, I'd like to highlight though that it's at the end of the day, one way to really push for inclusion, it has to be a concerted effort with the society. The tendency of the community is that we only ask for one sector to work for it, and that other sector shouldn't work for inclusion. For example, we always blame the government for the issue of inclusion because there are no policies. If there are policies, there are issues with implementation. But at the end of the day, individually, how do we reflect? Are we practicing the concept of inclusion? Are we respecting individual differences? So I think one way of also addressing the issue of inclusion is to shift this thinking that it has to be a concern for all of us. It's not only by the government, but it has to be a concerted effort of everyone.
I think that's important that you mentioned that, specifically when Andrea talked about it's where everyone is different. There's no such thing as a standard human being or a standard person that we can then measure ourselves by. The fact that we all have differences should be something not tolerated, but something celebrated. And I think if we start thinking about it in that context of how can we celebrate your differences as a way that it contributes to society versus take away from society, I think we can move the needle. But you're right, Rolando. I think looking within ourselves as individuals and how we as individuals can create spaces for other people to feel a part of the conversation or be authentically engaged beyond just what the government can put in place. Because the government can put sanctions in place, but until people start to implement those things, it's kind of hard to say that we're really, truly including other people. But I want to tag Anna into the conversation and see if she has any thoughts about what are the barriers to making the world, our society, our education more inclusive for everyone.
Just to continue a little bit on what Rolando started regarding the involvement of government or expectation that government should make inclusive laws, but in the same time society is not, I would say, not ready. And we have an example in Moldova. The government said that we should include children with disabilities in schools, and they should be in the same class as others. Then teachers started to fight with this and saying that they are not ready to have children with disability in the same class because they are not ready to work with them, and they don't know how to work with them, and they don't have time to spend because they have like 20 kids, not just one, and they don't have time to pay attention just to one kid that has special needs. And then parents started to be against that their children will learn in the same class with children with disabilities. So on one hand, the government was open and they said, like, yes, we should include children with disabilities in the school, in the like usual school. But then parents and teachers started to be against. and started not to like the idea of having school. And then what we started to do community mobilizing, and we started to work with the community and to let them to understand that children with disabilities, people with disabilities, like this is a long-term process. We cannot change it in one day. But also, I'm coming from a country that was member of the Soviet Union, where the people with disabilities, and especially like people with disabilities or children with no parents, all the time special institutions. So we grow up in a society where we didn't saw people with disabilities on the street because they are in special institutions. So now we are trying to integrate them, but it's about the mentality. It's about like changing the behavior of people. Like I was first time when I was going to Europe, and I saw like people in wheelchair going to store or going somewhere by themselves, like living their life. I was so surprised because I never saw in Moldova a person with wheelchair going alone to, because technique of social theater. And I'm organizing here in Moldova with my colleagues from the YPR. We are organizing social theater festival, and we are trying every year to involve adolescents with disabilities in our performances, and to show to the people that there is no difference, and these people are like just we are, and we should include them, or even not to include, but just to accept, because they are in our society. Social theater to change the attitude of society regarding the people with disabilities.
Those are great points, Anna, and I like the fact that you pointed out that we can't just have change at the top, but we also need to have change at the bottom. So not just a top-down approach, but a bottom-down approach, and changing people's perspective by exposing them to the fact that people with disabilities have the ability to also contribute to society and be active. So with that being said, before we jump into the next conversation, I think it's important to note, Anna, can you move? I think it's important to note that we've come so far in just the last 5, 10, 15 years. And I think if we even just point out the fact that this conversation itself is a form of inclusion, and that technology allowed us to then to have this inclusion conversation, because we have people from all over the world who are able to kind of tune in and be a part of such an important conversation on the International Day of Tolerance, particularly as we talk about ways to include everyone in different forms of society. So I want to, yes?
We just like to highlight that because, you know, when we talk about inclusion, there's always a big inclination to disability.
Yeah.
What we're trying to say here is what you've mentioned. We're talking about everyone. We're talking about ethnicity, language, everything, and that we're trying to change people's perspective. That if we think about inclusion, we only think about disability, but we're talking about everyone.
Yes. Thank you, Rolando, for pointing this out. I think people are always associate inclusion with disability, but it's more about including people, including everything, including people with disabilities, in relation to education, in relation to health, inclusion in relation to human rights, and so on.
Yeah. So it's everyone, regardless of whatever difference they bring to the table. Everyone should have a seat at the table and be a part of society in equal measures. I think it's important to note. So as I mentioned in the very beginning of this conversation, this is not just about the International Day of Tolerance, but also the launch of Globi, which is an amazing platform. And I'm going to allow two of its co-founders to briefly tell us about the context behind Globi. Why was it created? And so Andrea and Rolando, if you can just briefly tell us, what is Globi? What is the mission, the vision, like why create it in the first place?
Well, we started thinking about Globi last spring when both of us, Rolando and I, were in Prague. We are part of the same master's course, and in June we were in Prague and we organized an event for the International Day of the African Child, and we partnered with some local organizations, with Lumos Czech Republic, with the university, Charles University in Prague, with Caritas Czech Republic, and we organized this event, and we found that it was it was a symposium. Some people attended, and we decided that we wanted to bring these initiatives forwards on a different way, on a different platform. So we started thinking about a project related to inclusion. However, as Rolando rightly pointed out, inclusion very often is associated to disability, but we wanted to do something a bit more. In our idea, Globi, which stands for Global Observatory for Inclusion, in our idea, our hope is to bring together advocates and experts from all over the world, providing a common platform, which is the Observatory online, to share ideas, to share perspectives, to promote collaboration, to create local and global networks, and in general to generate awareness on the theme of inclusion in all its forms and all its varieties. As we said before, in our vision, diversity has to be embraced and valued, and all human beings must be empowered and able to reach their full potential, to prosper, to flourish in an inclusive world, in inclusive societies. Rolando, what do you want to add something more?
Oh, that's very well said. But yeah, adding to what Andrea mentioned about, I mean, we see Globi as a long-term project, and we see this as an opportunity for people to collaborate and talk about issues related to inclusion. And at this very moment, we're building up on people coming from different backgrounds at the same time. So within the Globi platform, we do have experts in the medical field. We do have experts on the education field. We do have experts on disability, girls' education. So it's a lot of themes within Globi that we're looking at, and we're getting volunteers or people who are interested and committed enough to work with us to bring the process forward. And one thing that we're also looking at Globi is it's also an opportunity to focus on certain issues in a specific part of the world. So soon you'll see the Globi website, and we've categorized the issues according to the region. And within the region, we will be able to see themes that people can read on in relation to inclusion. And of course, they're very free to share and give their comments and interact with the authors at the same time.
Yeah, I think that networking is one of the main goals of this project. So all are invited. This is not just a launching event, but we want also to invite people to join, to participate, because inclusion, as we said before, we cannot expect that inclusion to be achieved by others, by the government or by our neighbors. We are part of the process. We must be part of the process. Inclusion, in our view, is going to be structured in different ways. There will be an emphasis on different regions of the planet, as Rolando said, and different themes. These themes include, of course, disability, but not just disability. They include gender issues, they include migration, they include language issues, labor and employment, human rights, of course, education, but also environments, ethnicity, and many other different relevant themes and topics. The observatory online will be structured with the website. So the functional line will be divided in two main parts. On the one hand, with the observatory, we want to monitor inclusion around the world through the production of news and monitoring different societies in relation to the different themes. On the other hand, we want also to produce and generate knowledge and stimulate dialogue and raise awareness on these themes through the production of contents such as articles, but also essays and interviews and reportages and so on and so forth. So this is the online activity. However, we want to bring Globi offline as well. Rolando, do you want to say something about it?
Yes, what we plan with Globi is that we're also looking at Globi as an opportunity for people to convene in person. That's why we are very critical at monitoring international celebrations, for example, one of which is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3. The big question that Globi would like to answer to that is how can people work together in person to promote the event? So aside from working online, that's also one thing that Globi has to look into, how to collaborate with networks and people in doing in-person activities in a certain part of the world.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I think one thing is important about Globi is the fact that too often we think that we're the issues that we're impacted with, the adversities that we face every single day is very exclusive to our own experience in our own cities and our own countries. But what I find that's important about Globi is that it takes conversations that show that, yes, these issues are happening in your neighborhood, but they're also happening around the world, and they just look differently. And these are the voices of the young people who are experiencing those same kind of situations. And I think that's really important when you think about inclusion.
Yes, Jamira, and it's actually very interesting because, you know, a week ago I went around the University of Oslo and I tried to approach people to listen to what they think about inclusion. And based on my observation, people have this stigma and they're quite scared with the word inclusion. I think they find it so big and so heavy. And so that's the challenge we anticipate within the Globi, that this is one challenge that we have to face. You know, how do we make inclusion a beautiful word, an attractive word, an appealing word to everyone, that it becomes more accessible, more widely used for everyone. So it becomes more of like a casual language, because I believe a lot of people still think that inclusion is such a big word and that it's something that people shouldn't care about. But, you know, we're trying to promote it as well through the Globi, or the Global Observatory for Inclusion.
Exactly. So it's not just about tolerance, it's about inclusion and thinking of people as celebrating their differences. So we got to hear from the two founders about what Globi is, and now I'm curious if we can hear from Anna and Karim to talk about, because both of you are actually going to be involved in Globi moving forward in different capacities. So I'm curious if both of you can just briefly tell us, to what capacity are you going to be involved in Globi, and how can people look out for that information moving forward? We'll start with you, Karim.
Yeah, you can hear me. So, adding to what Rolando just said, I think it's very important that we include, just join the networks of people and see what we can do on individual basis and not just online. So, as the North Africa coordinator, I aim to actually include people within the different countries within the region to accept the idea of inclusion and try to promote it within their countries through different NGOs and organizations, whether UN agencies or other youth organizations, to start working on the idea of inclusion in different fields that are the different themes of Globi, whether it is gender issues, just like Andre said, whether it's human rights, whether it is migration, and so on. And I think that this, after giving some, and we can finally reach out to a level where people can find inclusion, just like Rolando said, a beautiful word, and not something so hard, not something so offensive, and people are less stigmatizing when you talk to them about inclusion of people with disabilities, of people with illiterate, or people living with HIV, and so on, or people even LGBTQ rights, and so on. So people would be more accepting of that of inclusion, and so this will basically be the field of work in the upcoming periods, including people from different NGOs, different youth groups, UN agencies, and so on.
Anna?
Hey, I'll be involved in Globi as a regional editor, and I'll try to, I don't know, collect and edit and present materials from Eastern Europe and Central Asia related to inclusion. And I want to say that I'm really enthusiastic on Globi and what will happen. And I really think that this is a good initiative because it started by young people and will be led by young people, which is, I think, very important. And also, I want to mention that working on inclusion, it's not easy. So we have a hard task, but for sure we can manage it and spread the word about what we are doing.
Perfect. So I should mention before we get to our final questions is that it's important that this conversation doesn't end here today. Again, you can always use the hashtag inclusion2me moving forward, or follow Globi. It is Globi. Why can't I find the Twitter name? It is Globi_inclusion. So you can always join the conversation, always get connected to them online, as well as continue to join the conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to ask all of our panelists to give us their final thoughts about inclusion, and particularly why it's important that Globi exists and for people to get engaged. And Rolando, we'll start with you.
Well, we would like to invite everyone to be actively involving Globi, as has been mentioned in the discussion today. This is for everyone, and we are very keen at including everyone, whatever your background is, whatever your ethnicity is, whatever your age is. So this is not only for young people, but for people across ages. And take Globi as an opportunity for us to, you know, embrace the concept of diversity and make it as a melting pot of people, where people are enriched with discussion, with a lot of opportunities to talk about inclusion. So this is a very good opportunity for us. And should you have questions about Globi, and if you're willing to participate on, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'd love to work with you in the future.
Andrea?
Well, Globi is a bet, and it's a beautiful adventure which is officially starting today. The website will grow in the next few days. Already quite a lot of people are started following us. Quite a good number of people became part of our community. I also want to publicly thank Raffaele for building our website and allowing us to be live today, and Raz for creating our beautiful logo, and all the other people that supported us until now, and they will keep supporting us in the future days. We stress many times that everyone is welcome, and inclusion is not just on the outside; is in the inside. We already have on board university professors, we have students, we want to have parents, we want to have children. So really, everyone is involved, and anyone who has to say something on inclusion. And the point is that we think that, you know, each one of us should have something to say on inclusion, because that's about all of us.
Anna?
Sorry, my microphone. I hope that we will manage, first of all, to spread the knowledge about what is an inclusiveness and how we see the world inclusive. And also, I really hope that we will change the attitude of young people, of other people that will follow us, and we will start to be more inclusive as individuals, and then move to the society and government and so on.
Karim?
So Globi is just the perfect really initiative project. It is everything that youth at least people need in time in this era. I hope that we can create the awareness for everyone to be able to include people, not just tolerate others, but just embrace them as well, like Andre said. I think that this is the first step for a great initiative. We will become the leaders of change within this region, within the world, because everybody nowadays really is just different. Everybody is special, everyone is unique in a certain way, and we all need to be included together. We all need to be connected.
Thank you. And the point that you made, Rolando, about a melting pot, too often when we think about melting pot, we think about gumbo, where you see, when you look into the pot, everyone is still individually separate, but a melting pot is all about immersing everyone to be together and changing, and not changing the identity, but more so changing the environment to make it more inclusive. And so just to talk about briefly, again, it's not just about disabilities, it's about race, it's about differences that people have across a number of different areas. It's about all of us, meaning we all play a role in changing how people with differences are treated in society, and that we can change how that looks in society as just one person or just one community, and we don't have to wait on government to really make the major changes. And I think it's also important, what Anna mentioned earlier, which is the fact that we can't just do this top-down approach and expect government to change everything tomorrow with a policy or a law. That we also have to do the groundwork by including people in our conversations and communities and asking them how can we better assist in making sure that they're included in the world. And so I'm truly excited for not just this conversation, but that we had this conversation on the International Day of Peace, and that we were able to help launch Globi as an online platform for everyone to have these conversations outside of just their friends or their community base. And so GenYnot is super excited to continue partnering with Globi moving forward. We think it's an exciting platform, and we think that it's hitting on issues that people aren't ready to talk about, but we're going to talk about them anyway. And so again, thank you everyone for joining and watching this show wherever you are in the world, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This conversation doesn't end here. Again, you can still join the conversation at #inclusion2me, or follow Globi at Globi_inclusion because they're looking for young people to get engaged. No one will be turned away. Sorry, Rolando. No one will be turned away. We will find a place for you. And to continue to look for content like this, GenYnot is always online creating content for young people, and you can go to our website at www.GenYnot.com, theGenYnot.com, or follow us on Twitter at GenYnotLive. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'm actually going to go back to sleep, but it was a pleasure hosting this conversation. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all.
See you.
Nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hopefully Jordan will end the live feed soon.
It's still live.